Welcome to Arts News. I'm Jimmy Ray here with you every Friday at 10 a.m. to talk about people, places, and things to do in the arts world of the Ozarks. And this week we talk to a composer and visiting assistant professor here at MSU about a recent accolade. Also, Dusty Dale Barker and his new documentary, which is debuting at the Chinese Theater this week. That and more coming up on Arts News. Let's go. I'm Jimmy Ray. Welcome to Arts News here on KSMU. We love our classical music here on KSMU as we've been airing it for many, many decades. And a young composer here with me today who has just had a recent accolade, an honorable mention as part of the 2026 Missouri Composers Project. It was a competition, and an honorable mention comes just after first place in this competition, so it's quite the credit. Welcome to the studio, Philip C. Roberts, composer.
Thanks, Jimmy. Happy to be here.
So cool to have composers in here. Classical music, I've been learning a lot about it. I come from rock and roll, but I've been talking a lot with Kyle Wiley Pickett each month during the season of the Springfield Symphony Orchestra, learning about composers, his programs, the different eras, and all that stuff, and it's just fascinating to me. How did you get started in classical music? Did it start as violin, piano, what?
I was a pianist first, and it was when I was about 5 years old. We had a piano in the house, and kind of the first song I ever connected with emotionally was Puff the Magic Dragon. So nice. I used to just go over to the piano, and there was a key that had a scratch in it, and I just start on that key and play dun 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 dun. And then I figured that out by ear, and
wow.
So figuring stuff out by ear was always kind of part of it. Started teaching myself to read notated music with some piano books, and was always into the composing thing alongside of that.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. I'm Jimmy Ray. You're listening to Arts News. We have Philip C. Roberts here, and we're talking about his recent accolade at the 2026 Missouri Composers Project competition. The tune was Hocket Rocket, and he took honorable mention. Hocket Rocket. Where'd you get that name?
Well, it's kind of a descriptive name. So Hocket, not many people who aren't music majors would know what that is, but it's a medieval technique where you take little fragments of a melody and you spin them out in different members of the ensemble. So then you get kind of a cumulative melody. And then rocket because, well, it's a fast piece and the momentum never really slows down.
Yeah. Yeah, I was listening to it, and it has a certain tension to it. It seems somewhat frantic and somewhat tense until it kind of has some resolution at the end there. But I also noticed that you had a drum kit when I was listening on this. So written for drum kit, that's somewhat unorthodox.
Yeah, for orchestra. And so kind of like hobbled a drum kit together from just various orchestral percussion instruments. So there's multiple people playing percussion instruments in the piece, and together it has the sound of a drum kit, yeah.
Yeah. Whenever you write something, does it have to be a certain way as far as the size and the instrumentation goes, or can it be somewhat flexible?
Oh, that's a really good question, because this piece was first written for solo piano.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I wrote this when I was a senior in my undergraduate studies originally, and there's a lot of differences, of course, because once I decided to orchestrate it, I added a bunch of stuff for the different instruments and a lot more detail, stuff like that, and things that I just come up with over the years, kind of riffing on it. I'd even riffed on the piece a little bit with a funk band I was in for a while.
Nice.
So it is malleable, and that it can be played by different groups.
Yeah, very, very cool. And I noticed here as I was reading the press release that you do some teaching, not just here as a visiting professor. This is your first year here, right?
Yeah, first year as a visiting assistant professor
Yeah,
in music theory composition.
Enjoying the Missouri State University community?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's really nice that I'm part of the Arcash College, which is the College of Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences. And it's a very interdisciplinary group, so I enjoy being part of the faculty, and the students are great.
Yeah, excellent. Now, I see that you also teach up in the summers. We were talking Michigan, way up there, Traverse City.
Yeah, Interlochen Camp right near Traverse City in Michigan.
What exactly is that up there? Interlochen Center for the Arts.
Yes, that's the center, and because they also have a year-round school. But I teach at the summer arts camp there, and that is a camp for K through 12 students. It started as an orchestra camp back in the 1920s.
Wow.
And there's a little connection between Springfield and Interlochen in that Percy Granger was one of the first conductors of the Interlochen orchestras and visitors there, and he also lived for 3 years in Springfield, Missouri. So yeah, a little connection there.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Springfield kind of has that thing where people have kind of passed here, they know of it. You know, it's the
Yes.
gateway of the Ozarks. But
It really seems to be.
I'm Jimmy Ray. You're listening to Arts News. We have Philip C. Roberts here. So we're talking about this recent accolade that you had at the 2026 Missouri Composers Project Competition with a tune called Hocket Rocket. Up in Columbia, you got to perform it again. Is that right?
Yeah, so part of the competition is that the winners and honorable mentions all have their pieces performed by the Columbia Civic Orchestra. And they are a fantastic group. Community members and high schoolers and all different age groups are in this ensemble. Helmed and originally created, I believe, by Stefan Freund. This is his last year with the group, so he gave his farewell at the end of this concert, and this happened to be the last piece on the concert, Hocket Rocket, my piece. And he said that this was his last piece conducting that group, which was a surprise to me, so I was honored in a way.
Yeah, sure. Very cool. So whenever it comes to being a composer, I assume that perhaps there's probably some technology recently that's made it more obtainable, but I assume there's a certain amount of difficulty trying to get your pieces played by entire symphonies and orchestras. I mean, that's a lot of people to get together, a lot of charts alone, seats, space, all of that. So
Sure.
Is it a special occasion when you do get to be at the helm, your piece at the helm of an orchestra? How often does that actually happen to a composer like yourself?
No, it's definitely a big deal, and that's why these competitions are so great. And I think this one was funded by Gene, who's a donor of the arts up there in Columbia and does a lot of projects, including, I think, a summer composers project. So, it takes a financial investment, of course, to hire an entire orchestra to play something. And a lot of us composers, we rely on generous donors like that and competitions like this in order to get our stuff heard.
Yeah. So whenever you are composing it, is it a software nowadays that people are using? Are you still putting pen to paper? What's it look like when you're actually writing?
It's a little bit of both. I usually start at the piano since I'm a pianist, and then I move to the pen to paper phase, and I don't usually finish the whole piece on paper because I'm like, okay, I think I've got the gist of this, and I hop over to the computer software. I use Sibelius, but there's a lot of other great ones out now, and I notate it into the software, so yeah.
Yeah, and it'll play back?
Yeah, there's MIDI renditions, and with an orchestra piece, you got to kind of ignore that. Take that with a grain of salt. It's going to sound different in real life. You have to learn and know how the instruments are going to sound.
Right. Very cool. Talking with Philip C. Roberts, composer and recent recipient of an honorable mention at the 2026 Missouri Composers Project Competition for his tune, Hocket Rocket. And I'll tell you what, I think I'll go ahead and let's spin this thing in its entirety right now. You sent me a recording. It's Hocket Rocket from Philip Roberts right here on Arts News KSMU. I'm Jimmy Ray. You're listening to Arts News here on KSMU. I have composer Philip Roberts, and that last piece we just heard, Hocket Rocket, and that just took honorable mention for the 2026 Missouri Composers Project Competition. As we look back, Philip, you mentioned starting on the piano, simple things like Puff the Magic Dragon and kind of being able to play by ear and explore things. But what did it follow into the schooling? Did you start doing educational type music, academic stuff in school, or and then roll into college with it all? Give us just kind of a brief history of your journey.
Sure. I mean, while I started playing by ear, I immediately started learning notation and classical repertoire and all that sort of thing. And I think in this piece we just heard, Hocket Rocket, there's a little bit of the like a piano toccata sort of thing to it with the repeated notes. So it's a mix of classical and popular influences. And then as I went into schooling, I always knew that I wanted to be a composer, from when I started undergrad at James Madison University in Virginia. I knew I wanted to be a composer, but also keep playing piano alongside of that. A composer-performer, I guess you might say. So I've always been doing both, and at the same time, as I'll play a lot of classical repertoire and compose in that style, I also have played keys for several funk and soul groups, like Fox Sox in Cincinnati, for example.
Nice name.
So that's always been a part of my life, and it's definitely an influence on this piece.
It's nice to see folks not married to the one genre. Many times you have to be married to a genre. The jazzers, that's all they're going to play. Classical folk, that's all they're going to play. Even stuff like bluegrassers, where I come from, that's all they're going to play. But I love to see folks who'll get outside and play other genres, explore other genres. There's so much music out there.
Absolutely.
And when you're talented enough to play classical music or jazz or any of this stuff, crossover becomes a little bit easier. And you get the different perspective. Here comes a classical cat, but he's interested in funk music. You're going to get some stuff out of that cat that you wouldn't normally get from other players. So I think it's very interesting. What's
Sure.
been your experience collaborating with non-classical folks? Is it easy? Is it fun? Is it different? What's different about it? What's that crossover look like for you?
Yeah, well, for me, I've always existed in that kind of continuum between. I don't believe in there being a strong divide between classical and popular. I like to break that down. And so it's great you say that. And it's funny you mentioned bluegrass, because I've also written pieces for choir and bluegrass band, and I've had to work with the band. And if you listen to this Hocket Rocket piece, there's a lot of stuff that's not exactly rhythmically straightforward. It's not 4/4 the whole time. So to work with a group that isn't necessarily reading notated music, I'll have to kind of walk through them with how many repetitions there are of this, if there's an extra dead measure. And I do usually come up with a lead sheet for those who read chord symbols, which can help transition.
Yeah. Just kind of a different, more rustic way of charting things out, opposed to just reading every single note measure by measure by measure.
Exactly.
You said, performer, piano player as well. Do you get to play these compositions that you do on piano? Are you up there with them, or are you in the audience? Are you conducting? How's that work? Are those all separate jobs? Or
well, with an orchestra prize or a commission, usually the orchestra completely takes the piece under their wing, and they did a fantastic job, by the way, the Columbia Civic Orchestra. But where I can, I do oftentimes perform my own pieces. I've got a trio of my own, Trio Aperitif, with violinist Annette Meisner and cellist Michael Ronstadt. And we get together and actually they both do also popular stuff. Like Michael Ronstadt's big into bluegrass. I mean, his aunt is Linda Ronstadt. So, he had a big popular music thing growing up and everything.
Yeah. My crush, my country music crush.
Oh, yeah? Oh, that's great. Yeah, so we do a little bit of it all with that group. And I definitely play my own compositions with Trio Aperitif.
Very cool. Talking with Philip C. Roberts, composer of Hocket Rocket and many other tunes. But Hocket Rocket, the piece that we heard earlier, is the honorable mention at the 2026 Missouri Composers Project Competition. Thank you so much for joining me today. You sent me another piece here. How about we go out here on another piece? You sent me $9 an hour.
Yeah, so this is played by Trio Aperitif. This is the three, myself, Annette Meisner, and Michael Ronstadt playing it together.
Beautiful. Congratulations. Thanks for your time, and let's stay in touch.
Will do.
I'm Jimmy Ray. You're listening to Arts News. I'm Jimmy Ray. You're listening to Arts News. That was Philip Roberts and his composition $9 an Hour, right here on Arts News, KSMU.
Black and White Dream. In this version, Batman is living on the edge of the Dust Bowl. He tells the righteous town police that he and other vigilantes, in order to find meaning in a suddenly catastrophic life, flee out into the Kansas prairie each night, turning away from civilization in a flat-out run, to find what's wrong with this damn world and strangle it.
This one I wrote for a friend, and I love this friend so much. This one's called Eternity's Door. Even if we had never met, I still like to think that we could have met at the edge of the universe, where the sidewalk ends, perhaps on a bench on our way to somewhere, waiting on something else. All war-weary, yet full of life after many aftermaths we endured without another. Yet it would finally happen. We would peer right into eternity's door as it was erupting into existence, breaking from its weakened hinges with phantom trim high in animated suspension, swallowing the universe, turning the world we knew into oblivion. But then we would finally recognize another in that moment, though having never met, and hold hands walking into what strange reality would welcome us then. Maybe that's what happens anyway at the end of the world. Yet now we know one another. I used to say the future seems forever, but I can confidently say, after all this time and now knowing you, I think the end of the world can reasonably wait on us, as forever was only yesterday.
I'm Jimmy Ray. You're listening to Arts News here on KSMU, and a couple poems there. The last one by Rex Ibanez, and the first one by Max Ranyard. If you have a poem that you've written and like to recite, or just a favorite poem that you'd like to recite, or maybe you know someone who's a poet, you can write me at jray@missouristate.edu, and we'll try to get you on there. I'm Jimmy Ray. You're listening to Arts News here on KSMU, and a unique project coming out from Dusty Dale Barker. And he found some old film in a box of his grandfather's stuff, and he has created a short film around it, including a short essay poem as well as an original score. Joining me here by phone in LA as he prepares for his Hollywood debut of this film at the Chinese Theater, it's Dusty Dale Barker. Welcome, friend.
Hey, thanks. Good morning to you.
Good morning to you. And so it looks like here you wrote that you're a Lebanon kid, a Missouri boy.
Grew up in Lebanon, Missouri, born and bred. And I went to Mizzou for college. Spent a lot of time there. Actually, then I recruited for them for 4 years after I graduated. So I spent the first 26 years of my life in Missouri.
Yeah, wow. What'd you study when you were in Mizzou?
Business. Nothing close to film.
Has that helped in show business?
It has, and that's something where I'm constantly surrounded by creatives, and knowing how business operates is so incredibly vital. And it's something I've noticed even more that I do often encourage creatives to do whatever they can to study business or learn business, especially like people trying to get into the film business if they're younger, like kids, make sure you have this sort of background because it will come into play later on. Sometimes it's even basic things such as knowing should you have your own LLC? Will the tax write-offs help you there? There's some little things that go a long way.
Absolutely. So you're living in Nashville now. What drew you to Music City opposed to one of the coasts as somebody working in film and media?
I was actually going back through photos on my phone from the years, and I remember I took a trip out here in 2011 with a buddy, and I'd had a lot of people out of college that friends that had moved out here and had gotten involved in the business, and I stayed. I recruited for Mizzou, and it got to a point of I think I want to do film. I was deciding to change my life course directory. And I came out here while I was at the university. LA was one of my territories. I knew it pretty well. And my grandmother lived out here for a long time. And I made a trip out here, and I made a trip to Nashville. And in so many ways, Nashville just felt right. And it's hard for me to describe that. I think music has always influenced the creative process that I have, and even more so now. Now I think I just go back and I can recognize how influential music and the cadence of music. I mean, even as I write, I'll sit down and I'll find a song that tonally matches what it is I'm trying to make, and I'll have that play in the background as I write out a script or a treatment or something. Yeah, there was something about Nashville that just kind of clicked for me. I thought maybe I wanted to get more involved in the music world as well, and maybe I wanted to play music, and so I made that shift there. And it took me a while to get involved in the film world. Actually, I got very involved in the music world before I stepped over into film.
Oh, what were you doing? What were you doing in the music realm?
Initially, I moved to Nashville. I didn't know anyone. There's a couple of people that I knew that I'd met through my sister. One was her best friend's mom, and she gave me a place to stay for a few months, and she had started introducing me to a couple of people around the city. And I got a job as an intern at a record label, and that allowed me to start to learn the music business. And I ended up getting hired there full time to do digital media, which was a very different space back in 2012. And then I had a buddy who owned the Listening Room. He and I became very close over that year that I'd been there, which is a venue in Nashville where a lot of people have heard of the Bluebird. Where they have songwriter rounds. It's that, but a little bit larger. It's downtown. And one day he was like, I need a new GM. So I took that role. I was doing content and media for some artists on the side. I had a buddy whose career just took off overnight, it felt like, and that allowed me to step out. So I left the Listening Room in 2014. And at some point, somebody was like, hey, can you direct a music video? And I said, sure. And learned a lot. Wasn't totally prepared, but I do still love a lot of the early stuff that I've made. And it started the process of I would hop on a tour with artists or musicians, and then I would come off the road and I'd direct music videos and brand videos for things. And I started managing an act as well, and building what creative direction I thought could be for an artist, and did a wild combination of that up until the pandemic when everything stopped. And then I had a moment to reflect and realize that, oh, I moved here to kind of do my own thing. I mean, it was film was what always pulled me. And so at that point, I'd done well over 100 projects, including music videos and everything else. And it was like, I needed to learn narrative filmmaking. At that point, I put myself through like DIY film school to learn the art of like narrative filmmaking. And in 2021, started making some short films. So I'm fairly new to the short film space, I guess.
Interesting. And that leads us to this new project. Tell folks what this is in your own words here, because as I read this, I found it so intriguing. And as I watched the trailer, I was pulled in even farther. So give us a synopsis of how this came about and what this Marigold film is all about.
A few years ago, my parents moved, and in doing so, you go through old boxes of stuff. And we had a box of my grandfather's old stuff. I found this roll of 8mm film that had his handwriting on the box. Kind of wild. Like, we didn't know that they even had an 8mm camera. I went and got it developed in Nashville, and it was 4 minutes of color footage from 1959 that was shot on our family farm down near Lebanon. It was near Bennett Spring State Park. And it's wild to see. It was my grandfather fly fishing and grandmother cleaning fish. And my mom was 2.5 years old, like the family sitting on the porch. And it was a farm that we don't have anymore. And it was kind of wild to see that, because it's what me and my sister are both named after. So much family history there. And I knew I needed to do something with that for all those years. I just could not figure out what it was. Last year, I had to go to Europe for work, and a few people I was with, we decided to go to Berlin for a few days. And I called my mom. I was there walking around one day, and we were talking about grandfather being in the war, and she was telling me about him being in the Battle of the Bulge, and I didn't know that. And it clicked this little thing in my head where I realized, oh, there's so many things when I was younger that I was too young to know to ask questions. These thoughts never go through your head at a certain time, and then you lose the ability to ask the questions. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, I know what I need to do with that footage. I'd also had some VHS footage digitized from the early 90s of my family, some of it on that farm itself. So when I got home from Europe, I had some work in LA, and then I had a week off in Oregon, and I wrote this poetic essay. And the composer I've worked with for years, I called her and I said, hey, do you think we could have this done in like 2.5 weeks, and we could submit this to a festival in New York? And she said, yeah. And so I went home and I edited it all together, and then she and I talked through the score for like 2.5 hours one day of where all these influences came from. And then the first draft of the score she sent back to me was absolutely perfect. And then we had our finished little film.
Wow. Incredible. And so as you flip through this stuff, these snapshots in time, pictures are one thing, but to actually get some video from 1959 and seeing your mom that young, what are the things that obviously you knew that was special, but what were you feeling when you first realized what you had found here?
How to put that into words? So whenever I was younger, your grandparents are old when you're a kid, as the way time works. And, you kind of see photos of them and whatnot. And film footage from this time period, 50s, 60s, is not as common as what it is today. We have phones, we can pull out and film whatever we want at all times.
Yeah.
And to have that and see them younger, but also in this particular place. I mean, the farmhouse that they're around doesn't exist anymore. It got burnt down due to arson in the early 2000s. So some of it was to see that existing, to see, like, I learned to fly fish on that river, to see what that existed right now. And like everything down there now is a resort. It was a snapshot in time that is so simple. And it's something I go into in the film, how these people in particular, they're not exceptionally remarkable to the world, but they are to me and to like my family, because that's who they are. And I find that so fascinating, because I wanted something that could relate to people, like anyone that was watching it. Yeah. And because me myself watching this old footage, it like I saw a younger version of a family that I was born way later than this footage ever existed. There was a version of people that like I didn't know. I knew a later on version, but it is absolutely my history. And then I started to realize these stories that these people had and these people are, I think, are so important for us to at least catalog to ourselves and know and to keep, which is what the whole point of the Marigold film was. And it's me trying to encourage other people to recognize that in themselves and their own stories.
Yeah, we all live in our own tiny universes, and feelings can run so deep within family and friends, but then you move to a stranger and they have their own tiny universe. And so it's interesting just to kind of see that come to fruition. If you're just joining me, I have filmmaker, director of a new short film, Marigold, Dusty Dale Barker, and he's out in LA, and this film's getting ready to be screened. Tell us a little bit about the screening, where it's going to be, what it's part of, and what it means to you in your career to be able to be out in LA and making this kind of this big move into the Chinese theater.
It's an odd series of events that I feel as though have led me to this exact moment when one of my first big events that I ever got into, I got a call to go out on the road to capture some behind the scenes photography for a band named Augustana. And they were opening for a band named One Direction. And there was their last like stadium shows. And then I got sent over to London for the last shows at the O2 they had over there. The first one of those shows was September, I think it was 28th or 29th of 2015. That was at that point the biggest thing I'd ever done in my life or career. And then went through this whole journey. And then 10 years later, to the day, I had 2 films screen at the LA Comic-Con. And those were like my own productions, which at that point became the biggest thing in my career. This little piece of footage, it's one of those things where it's like, I feel as though my grandparents just keep giving me things that help me along the way. And I stumbled across this. In some ways, I feel like I stumbled into Berlin that started this conversation with my mother that I knew what to do. And then Dances with Films decided to pick it up and did the world premiere in New York in January. And while we were there, they were like, think about applying for the LA version. And then here we are this little bit later. And there's so many things that was like, this feels right in so many ways of like the next evolution of my journey to have a film. And I'm just like a kid from the Ozarks. Right? And this is a deeply personal film that, in so many ways I made for myself and my family. And it's like, can I get my mom and my sister to cry watching something like this? And then Lauren with her score, a score and music is the emotional truth of any film. And it really brings home like what this is and what it's about. And then they're like, oh yeah, it's going to screen at the Chinese Theater, which I also didn't realize until we got into the festival. Wow. And, that's kind of a dream venue for any film that you would ever want to make. And then I turned 40 2 days after the screening. So it feels like, oh, this is where I'm supposed to be. Kind of look for those things throughout life of like, yeah, this is right. I'm on the right track. And this in so many ways has felt like that.
Yeah. I love those full circle moments. Talking with Dusty Dale Barker, director of a new short film, Marigold, and it's getting ready to make its debut in the Chinese Theater in Hollywood as part of the Dances with Films after a successful run in New York. And what's the future look like? Are folks going to be able to access this? Are you going to hit it harder on the festival circuit? Where are you going with it next?
There are a few festivals that it is going to go to. I can't announce any of that yet. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to do a screening back in Lebanon, my hometown. There's still people that are familiar with my family back throughout there. I don't have that date set yet, but it will be in the fall when after I actually plan time for that, and then it will go online. The ideal goal and what I'm pitching this for right now is like historical societies. I think this is phenomenal for that. There's a part of the Smithsonian that this is something that perfectly aligns with what they're working on. The ideal goal here too is I want people to do stuff like this for their own families and start recording those moments, the sort of little ordinary things, not the extraordinary stuff, but it's just sort of sitting down. I think one thing that I'd learned out of this process is that I will travel back home now, and I'll sit down and I'll turn a camera on with my parents, and I just start having conversations with them about their lives before I was around. And I want to know random little things. And the first time I did this with my dad, we sat down for like 2 hours and he started telling stories. My dad loves to tell stories, and I've heard a lot of them multiple times. But all of a sudden, I started to hear things that I've never heard before in my life. Like, he was telling me new stories. And I loved gaining that perspective of not only like him and the way he grew up, but also like where I'm from. And with me, the stories influence everything that I do. So that's something I've started to encourage people to do, is actually like sit down and have these other conversations to see, what don't you know? Because you didn't know to ask,
Right. Very cool. It's Dusty Dale Barker, director of a new short film, Marigold. From Lebanon and Bennett Springs to the Chinese Theater in Hollywood, California, and the Dances with Films Festival. Good luck to you, my friend. Congratulations. And let's stay in touch about that local screening.
I will. I appreciate you, and I'll let you know when that's coming up. And the next thing I'm gearing up for is I've got 2 more shorts that are about done. We're going to send out to festivals, and then I'm gearing up for a feature to start filming that later this fall.
Excellent. Well, good luck to every endeavor you have, and be safe traveling out there.
Thank you. Take care.
Let's play the first little bit of this film just to get a vibe on the tone and the sentiment. It's Marigold here on Arts News KSMU. I'm Jimmy Ray. Welcome, friends.
Watch this with me. You don't know these faces, and you don't need to. For more than 60 years, they've been waiting here, caught in this light, ready to live again. And that feeling you just had, that jolt, that's wonder. I found this by accident, buried in a box. 4 minutes of someone else's summer, untouched for decades. No sound, no script, just my family. I'm showing you because I think wonder is worth saving, even in the smallest, simplest things. On paper, these are unremarkable moments. But listen. That's Ruth, my grandmother. The best card shark I've ever met. Her laugh could stop time.
That was an excerpt from the short film Marigold by Dusty Barker, who's getting ready for his Chinese theater debut with this piece as part of a film festival and others to come. We'll keep you updated whenever there's a local screening happening of that film circulating around his family who grew up near Bennett Springs. I'm Jimmy Ray. Welcome to Arts News. Folks, just a quick reminder, several different ways to tune into Arts News. If you're listening right now live on the radio, we appreciate you, of course. We're also streaming on the web at ksmu.org for this program and all of our programming. You can also check out the Green Room. It's an arts newsletter. Comes out every Friday morning, straight to your inbox. I'll be your host as we explore the arts world of the Ozarks, just like Arts News. You can head over to ksmu.org, click on the newsletters tab to sign up. And finally, podcasts from KSMU Studios, a growing collection of podcasts, surrounding the Ozarks, whether it's arts and music, history and gardening. Available wherever you get your podcasts. You can explore the collection and decide which ones you want to follow at ksmu.org/podcasts, including Arts News. As a podcast, every Friday a new episode will drop. Thank you for listening, folks. We sure do love you here at our public radio station in the Ozarks, KSMU. And Springfield Little Theater has unveiled its 92nd main stage season, featuring a lineup that ranges from epic musicals and classic comedy to holiday favorites and contemporary Broadway hits. The season opens in September with Les Mis, followed by Arsenic and Old Lace, and the holiday favorite Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. In 2027, audiences can also look forward to Once Upon a Mattress, Dear Evan Hansen, Peter Pan Goes Wrong, and Mean Girls. Executive Director Beth Doman said the new season, quote, reflects everything audiences love about gathering at the Landers. The nonprofit has been producing community theater in Springfield since 1934 and says it cannot wait to welcome our community back for another extraordinary season. Subscriptions go on sale July 6th and single tickets become available on July 13th. More information at their website, springfieldlittletheater.org. I'm Jimmy Ray. You're listening to Arts News here on KSMU, and a new season as well for Opera in the Ozarks, preparing to launch its summer season at Inspiration Point near Eureka Springs, Arkansas, featuring 4 classic works performed by some of the nation's rising opera stars. The festival runs this weekend, June 26th through July 24th, and marks the organization's 76th season. This year's lineup includes Mozart's The Marriage of Figaro and Bernstein's Candide, as well as a double bill of Puccini. The productions will be staged in the organization's new 300-seat theater, which opened last year and overlooks the Ozark Mountains. The festival also includes the free children's opera Monkey See, Monkey Do, performed in both English and Spanish at locations throughout Northwest Arkansas, as well as a Broadway cabaret featuring the company's young artists. Founded in 1950, Opera in the Ozarks has become one of the country's premier training programs for emerging opera professionals, with more than 4,000 alumni and a reputation for launching singers into some of the world's leading stages. For more information, tickets, and to see the full schedule, visit operaintheozarks.com. And Springfield poet and author David Harrison is among the artists featured in the newly released 5th season of The Story of Art in America. It's a docuseries celebrating the upcoming centennial of U.S. Route 66. The Springfield episode was filmed last fall and highlights local artists, musicians, and cultural institutions along the Mother Road. Harrison said the Springfield segment features the city's history museum, 2 musicians, 2 artists, and his own contributions to the community's literary landscape. Produced by Legit Productions, the series explores the voices, artwork, and cultural contributions of communities along Route 66 as the historic highway celebrates its 100th anniversary. Season 5 of The Story of Art in America is now available for streaming on Red Coral Universe. You can read more on David Harrison's website at davidlharrison.wordpress.com. And this weekend marks the final chance to experience Influx, a solo exhibition by Texas artist and educator Gavin Gilmore. It's at the SMAC Art Center in Hollister. The exhibit closes this Saturday, June 27th. The exhibit features 10 large-scale mixed-media, non-objective paintings that explore memory, texture, and the passage of time. Gilmore says the paintings are, quote, tied to memory, conveying a history that has been scraped away and added back in, with each work created layer upon layer through weathered textures and intuitive mark-making. Influx is on view today and tomorrow before it closes at the SMAC Art Center, located at 7 Downing Street in historic downtown Hollister, and admission is free. More information at their website, smac-art.org. That's SMAC-art.org. That's all the time we have for Arts News this week, folks. Thank you so much for joining me today and every Friday, 10 a.m. for Arts News here on our public radio station in the Ozarks. It's KSMU. Peace.
It's Arts News, people and places, things to do. Arts News, here on KSMU. Hey!